And welcome in. Welcome all. This is the Monday night edition of Rock Solid Sports. I am your host for tonight, filling in for Chloe Levering, who was filling in for our Joseph Bonanno. This is your host, Just Chris. Happy to be back here on mic number one here in the studio. As always, it is a lot of stuff going on tonight, of course. We have a lot that we're going to get into. But first, I've got a wonderful cast with me of esteemed young professionals. I have Tucker Harlan with us. I have Devin Hoke, and I have Keegan Krause. Guys, how are we doing tonight?
Doing good. What about you, Chris?
Man, I'm hanging in there with the best of them. Okay, Devin, Tucker, how you guys doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good, Chris. Obviously, getting very close to some very good sports stuff coming up here in August. College football, of course, right around the corner, and I know that we're going to talk about that and some very exciting news for the men's basketball team as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There is a lot going on with UT sports right now. Of course, as always, right? It never ceases. You know, there's always something going on, and fortunately for us lately, that's been a lot of good news. And some of the good news that we just had, of course, was Football Media Day. That was yesterday, and today was the first day of practice. So there is a lot going on. We heard from Coach Josh Heupel yesterday. I was fortunate enough to be a part of Media Day and be just kind of there in the presence of Heupel, Coach Heupel, I should say. As well as our defensive coordinator and offense coordinator. You know, I just think this is a great time because we know that football is just right around the corner, right? And so it always starts with those media days, SEC media days back in Atlanta, which was not too long ago, that our own Jack Foster was fortunate to cover, and then it goes forward. And now here we are. It was great to hear from the coaches, great to hear some of the things that were said from Heupel. He did mention players that are ready to go, that just mentally where they're at as we start the season. Of course, talking a lot about Hendon Hooker versus his healthy competition with Joe Milton. Talked about Juwan Mitchell, who we're all looking forward to seeing back on the field for Tennessee, as well as numerous other things. So with that being said, guys, I'll kick it off to you. And, let's get your thoughts on how Media Day went yesterday. Also, if y'all have checked out any of the news from practice today, and of course with our newcomer Brew McCoy out there.
Yeah, so you said you were out there, Chris?
That's correct. Yeah, I got to cover the Media Day yesterday.
How did you feel kind of the overall sentiment was this year compared to how it's been, last year with Heupel's first year? Did it feel like there was some more confidence and kind of the direction the program was going and kind of the overall feel? How was it out there?
That's a very good question, and I would say this guy exudes confidence, if I'm going to be honest. Heupel coming into the second year, I think the big difference between them versus last year is that they know they've already been through this. They know what they're getting into as season two gets underway, and he knows what he wants and I think what he expects out of his guys. That was a big word he used yesterday, specifically a quote saying there's a big difference between teams that believe versus expect in talking about winning and success off the field.
For sure. And you said you were talking about that healthy battle between Milton and Hooker. Obviously, I think we all know Hooker's the heavy favorite to be the starter this year, if not a lock. What can you go into more on that competition or what Heupel said about that?
Yeah, I think he was just very happy to see the competition amongst them because I think what it boils down to is it's an iron sharpen iron kind of thing. And we know Hooker, of course, is the undoubted favorite coming into this year. There is no actual competition as far as who's going to be starting. But the fact that him and Milton really play off of each other, they really help each other out off the field. He said they have a tremendous relationship, and I think that's amazing, especially for Milton, who came to Tennessee expecting as much of a chance to be a starter as Hooker did. And, of course, got beat out for the position last year. It's wonderful to see their relationship be able to have, a fruitfulness to it off the field.
Yeah, and I think this time last year, I don't know about you guys. I think my thought was that Milton was going to be the guy, even with his kind of downfalls he had at Michigan. Obviously he started those first couple games, and we kind of saw that he wasn't the guy. I think it's good as a fan base to kind of feel that we have that guy as opposed to last year. New coach, kind of two guys battling out. I think we're going to start off a little hotter this year. Maybe last year we took that early pre-SEC loss to Pitt. I think having this strong quarterback going into it may lean to us winning the Pitt game this year and kind of being undefeated going to the SEC and just start us off a lot stronger. So I'm happy about that confidence in the quarterback position.
Yeah, that's a good point, especially since this Pitt game, to me, is such a huge turning point of Tennessee's season, really, because I don't want to downplay Ball State or anything because they've had their moments, but really this road game against Pitt is so huge. Like if Tennessee loses that game, then the possibilities of getting to the high points of their season become really unlikely. Like the potentials of them going 9-3, or some fans even expect Tennessee to go 10-2, which I've personally thought is a bit too high. I think that's a bit unrealistic considering how good the competition is. But
I agree with you, Devin. Because there's after that Ball State and Akron game, there's not really an easy win on other than UT Martin. There's not an easy win. Even our home games, we're not likely to win a lot. We have Florida at home, Alabama at home, Kentucky at home. We're going to have to fight for every single game. So 10-2 is definitely a little bit of a lofty goal. But, yeah, you're right. That Pitt game is definitely a turning point.
Yeah, and especially with other teams like South Carolina improving. And South Carolina didn't have a bad season last season. They still went 7-6, winning a bowl game, and yet they might be better. The competition playing LSU, on the road, this is like tough games. So some fans' expectations are really, really high. And I'm just saying, I think Tennessee I think they will improve. I think 8-4 or 9-3 is way more realistic because I think I'm very concerned about Tennessee's secondary. And so I wanted to ask, you, Chris, you said the defensive coordinator was there too. Did he talk much about, the Tennessee secondary? Obviously, they've lost a lot. Key players like Alontae Taylor and others. Like, how does he expect his secondary to do, or if they mentioned that at all?
Yeah, I think they talked a little bit about that, because when Banks was up there, of course, there was a lot of questions that were coming at him, of course, about the linebackers, about third down statistics going back to last year. Tennessee, of course, notoriously a bad third down team last season. So I think there was questions, of course, directed, of course, at linebacker, but as well as DBs and secondary. I actually personally did talk to Jalen McCullough. He was one of the few players I did get to talk to, and I kind of asked him about that actually. About with Alontae gone, you're stepping up into more of a kind of a big time role in terms of leadership, and he had talked a lot about doing whatever the coaches had asked of him to do, and so I just kind of asked him, like, going along with that, how else are you able to help the newer guys that are coming in, but as well as the guys who maybe don't have as much experience going back to the past season or two. McCullough's been there. Taylor's gone now. He's going to have to step up and kind of be one of the big dogs out there, at DB. So yeah, there was a lot of questions about that for sure.
Yeah, I guess the one question I had, Chris, Devin kind of took it from me a little bit, but what was the overall demeanor of Tim Banks yesterday? We know that the defense was not a bright spot last year. Is there any more confidence there with, gaining some personnel after struggling with depth issues last year with all the guys transferring out?
I don't know how hopeful they are on being able to get to where I think they ideally want to be. But the sentiments that were kind of echoed from Tim Banks was that they felt good where they were at. They were happy to, of course, be getting back some players that unfortunately went down last year. So for the defense, he didn't, he seemed like he's got a control on what he wants right now. And at this point for Tennessee, of course, like it is for any team, it's going to be about how healthy you can stay throughout the season. Of course, there were questions about, in terms of how fast the offense was last year, how that affected the defense. And we all know it did, at least for the first few games of the season, if not at other times, right? The Alabama game, the fourth quarter, I was there covering that game. The defense had nothing left to give by that end of that fourth quarter. There was nothing left in the tank, and so there was a lot of questions, of course, also addressed about how do you kind of combat those issues. So for Tennessee, that's the big things. How can you do your best to stay healthy, as well as how can you make sure that you're conditioned enough to keep up with what's going to be once again a high prolific Josh Heupel offense.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be, I mean, and I don't want to say, I'm not going to predict that Tennessee is going to beat Alabama this season, but honestly, from last season, Tennessee was very competitive in that Alabama game. And that score, because the defense collapsed at the end, really was not indicative of how close and how good that game was. And I think when Alabama comes to Knoxville this season, I'm not expecting it to be a win, but I'm expecting it to be the most competitive game between the two in quite some time since, Tennessee almost upset Alabama like a few years ago. And that I believe like 2015, I think Tennessee got close to beating Alabama. But I think that this will be the most competitive game since then, because they're really just depending on the momentum and some of the other things that are going on in the season. So I think fans should really be excited for that one, even though the streak has gone on for a long time.
I'll just interject real quick that you are correct. 2015 was a very close game. I believe that was the Dobbs game where, Tennessee actually led, I think, at halftime. Or it was a very close game, sort of low scoring, as it usually goes in Tuscaloosa for some reason. They come up to here and they just put up points at will. It's kind of funny. Tennessee plays them better in Tuscaloosa, I feel. But the other game, of course, going back to the game a few years ago where we had the controversy, of course, with Pruitt and our quarterback at the time. But so no, Tennessee has definitely had Alabama very close, almost on the ropes a couple times in the past, I don't know, 5 or 6 seasons. I think you're right, though, Devin. I really think Tennessee can absolutely make a strong game with Bama this year, especially it being a home game. I know it's not really mattered for Tennessee in the past, but I think this is a different team. They feed off of the energy, I think, as well from that, 100,000 plus crowd. So, I believe we're still at 100,000, right? Give or take.
Yeah, we're still a little bit over 100,000. I think it's now like 102,000, I think. So.
Yeah. Taking a small loss for a big gain, I think we're going to fall in love quickly with the new Neyland Stadium once we get to that. But I mean, guys, we're a month away from football season. It's getting very exciting. You can sense it in the air. Maybe not with the weather, right? It doesn't feel like football weather right now, but I think we're getting there, man. And I'm so excited because Tennessee, right now, Devin, you're making good points. And I want to hear kind of what Tucker and Keegan, what you guys think. But, are there any real chance at upsets going into the season now? And I'm talking about our big three, Florida, Georgia, Bama, but as well as, can Tennessee go into Death Valley and maybe pull one out? What do you guys think?
Yeah, so I don't know if I'd call Florida an upset this year. I think we're in a position now where we can, we've got more momentum going into the season than they do.
It's just because it's Florida. We know how it goes versus them.
Exactly.
That's the upset, right?
Yeah, I understand. And that's one that it feels like we should win, especially with it being in Neyland. And that's just one that I have a hard time seeing at times us getting the victory because of that mental block. And then you're talking about Death Valley. I mean, the luck for Tennessee against the SEC West in the last 14 or 15 years is just has not been good with who they've had to draw out of the West, because I can think of maybe 4 wins in recent memory that they've had against West teams, and none of them were against particularly good teams. And it feels like we always encounter a team like, say, 2013 Auburn that was terrible the season before and ends up being just going on some crazy run, maybe making it to a national title game like Auburn. I'm not saying LSU will do that, although they were at the bottom of the division last year. So I could see us getting unlucky down there. That one scares me just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think an optimistic look at this season, we have probably our hardest game against Alabama at home, so that's a game that we could realistically win. But then you look, 2 weeks later, you got to go against Kentucky at home and then Georgia on the road. So eventually there's some fatigue that comes in there. Definitely, I mean, that Georgia game is definitely the spot I see this team, after going to Alabama, then UT Martin, then Kentucky, 3 home games. They finally got to go back on the road, a little tired. I don't really see a scenario where we win that Georgia game, but I could definitely see us winning Alabama and Florida. I mean, I think like highest ceiling for us is a 1-loss season. I think we're going to lose one of those games, but I think Alabama at home is probably going to be a 50-50 chance for us. And then I'm going to go into this season expecting Kentucky and Florida wins, especially with both those games being at home.
I think I completely agree with that, Keegan. If Bama at this point, I will take 50-50. If that's what we can get, then by all means, it's a home game. We'll take it. We'll take our odds in that situation. I think personally, Kentucky and Missouri, of course, are, while they are divisional opponents, you never take them lightly. Especially Kentucky. Kentucky is going to be another good team this year. But of course, I don't feel like anyone wearing orange and white, part of All Nation, really fears Big Blue Nation all that much. So that being said, that is still a game that could go up in the air by any means. I'm not saying that's a for sure win, but I do feel confident in that one. And as far as the Georgia game, that one to me is the only one I can see us like that. I would not have a whole lot of confidence that we're going to go on the road and be able to steal one. I mean, it's Georgia. They are defending champs. They do have a lot of players that are going to step up for all those NFL draft picks that they just lost. But so they're going to be a good team again, of course. But I think that's the one game. And so I agree. If Tennessee's absolute highest ceiling, I think, would be 1 loss for sure. But I might even throw 2 in just because Bama is Bama. Outside of that, I feel so confidently against many of the other teams. Pitt on the road, LSU. I know, and Tucker, believe me, I'm listening to you, man. But I was at Auburn when we pulled that one off. And I do hope that I can somehow make it work, that I can be in Baton Rouge and Death Valley for the game this year. So I would absolutely love to see if we can go down there, give them a fight, because if you recall the last 2 games down in Baton Rouge were both absolute classic finishes. One very good for us, one not so good for us, almost good, but ended up not being. So I'm excited about that. Tennessee, again, football does begin here in a month. I mean, we're now August. This is August 1st. So we are rolling right along. Summer is quickly coming to a close, not the technical season, but at least as far as our time off. So that being said, guys, we're going to switch gears a little bit. So go from the football Vols over to the basket Vols. News came out that they will open the season in the Battle for Atlantis tournament in the Bahamas versus Butler on November 23rd. Tennessee all-time stats versus Butler. They are 2-3. So this is a team that Tennessee can never take too lightly. We last played them in Coach Barnes' first season. We lost 94-86 in Indianapolis. Guys, what are we thinking about this? This is I like the tournament, the teams that are kind of in this, and what we're looking like here. How do you guys respond to the news of this?
Yeah, I love the Battle for Atlantis bracket. I mean, that Butler first game, I mean, that's going to be – I think we should expect to kill that Butler team. They were not great last year. Like, my Michigan State Spartans beat them fairly easily, and they were kind of just down the drain the rest of the year. I think they had a losing record, but the rest of that feels really excited. Because, I mean, you get a chance to play a lot of teams that we're not going to see in the SEC style-wise. You get a Wisconsin team that's going to be really defensive and slow. Obviously, if we win games, we'll play all these teams. You'll get some great mid-major teams in BYU and Dayton. You get an okay ACC team in State, and then you get, obviously, the reigning national champions in Kansas, and then a very good team last year in USC. So, I mean, there's a lot of great competition. If we can go far in this tournament and play some of the better teams in this bracket, it's going to really prepare us for going into SEC play and for even farther down the road in March, seeing teams in the tournament that we hadn't seen before. If you think back to the Michigan game, the game we lost in last year, we hadn't really seen kind of that defensive style Big Ten team. Now we got a chance to see this Wisconsin team early, which is similar to that Michigan team, which would, help us know that style better. So I think there's definitely a lot of good opportunities here.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right too. And I personally, like, when I look at this, I fully expect Tennessee to beat Butler as well. Butler was towards the bottom of the Big East. They're historically a very good basketball team, but lately they just haven't been that good. Last season they were really, really mediocre, and I don't see a whole lot of change for them. But even if Tennessee loses to Butler, regardless, they're going to play, either USC or BYU in some fashion, either winning or losing. So then those two teams should definitely give Tennessee, either one would give Tennessee more of a look to some more serious competition. Hopefully Tennessee does well in it. Again, I love these tournaments. I love these tournaments like the Battle for Atlantis. The Jim Maui tournament is incredible also. These early season tournaments are so much fun to watch because they just put together a bunch of teams that you don't typically see play against each other, and it really gives you an opportunity, as Keegan said, to look at the different styles of play that you're going to see all season. So I think this is great that Tennessee got invited to this, regardless of how it goes, really, since it's so early in the season. I mean, even if Tennessee loses badly, which I don't think they will, because I'm expecting Tennessee to be pretty good. But even if it doesn't go so well, okay, you still see these really good teams. What matters in college basketball is more about how you finish, less of how you start. So it's still very great experience for the teams, especially no doubt some of the other young guys that are going to be infused into this lineup. Even though I expect our lineup this upcoming season to have more of a veteran presence that's had in the last couple of seasons, with Nkamwa coming back, Plavsic coming back. I think our bigs could be absolutely ferocious, and I'm really excited to see what they can do against some of these other teams there in the Bahamas.
Yeah, I'm right there with you guys on this Butler matchup. I think they're a real sleeping giant in the Big East right now because, you've seen people like the Villanovas, the Creightons, the Providences of the world build up all around them. Looking at this, obviously the record is not good for us, 2-3 against them all time. But, I fully expect us to beat them just with the experience that we got, like you guys said. And, I do really look forward to some of these tournaments because you get to see a lot of teams that, maybe you'll end up seeing in the postseason, like the winner of the next game or at least the winner of the game that we would play in the second round, BYU or USC. Both of those teams have been relevant lately. I don't think BYU made the tournament last year, but they were relevant pretty much all season long. And then, of course, USC, especially in like the last 5 years or so, they've been a real powerhouse out there on the West Coast. So really looking forward to these matchups.
Yeah, that will be the next matchup. Tennessee, of course, taking on either the winner or the loser of the BYU USC game. And I think that's an exciting one in itself. As you said, USC, no scrubs themselves, BYU not either, but USC did make the tournament, of course, this past season. And I think I don't really know what they're looking like, to be honest, coming into the season, but I wouldn't put it past them that they're still going to be a team that to look out for in the Pac-12. And moving forward, that they could be another tournament team. So, so I'm very much looking forward to it. Again, that will be November 23rd, Tennessee basketball opening up the season in the Battle for Atlantis in Bahamas. We are all very jealous that they get to go down there. However, we are going to take a quick break. On the other side, we're going to have a lot of NFL news, a lot of contract extensions, and other, of course, news that has been going on surrounding Deshaun Watson. And later on, we will have, of course, all the craziness going on currently in the MLB. Stick around. This is Monday night edition of Rock Solid Sports here on WUTK 90.3 The Rock.
Athletic Department for their support. Season tickets for the 2022 UT Volunteers football season are on sale now. The next phase of Neyland Stadium renovations will be ready for the new season with home games against Florida, Alabama, Kentucky, and more. Info at allvols.com. A link is at WUTKradio.com. 90.3 The Rock wishes Coach Heupel and the football Vols good luck this season on the gridiron.
90.3 The Rock proudly brings Knoxville the best in new and classic, independent, and underground music on the Indie Owl. Monday nights from 8 to 10, hosted by former award-winning alumni from the WUTK Music Department and sponsored by Magnolia Records, 1515 North Central Avenue in Knoxville, and the Tomato Head Restaurant on Market Square and in the Gallery Shopping Center. Spinning cutting-edge music from around the world that pushes musical boundaries like noise pop, math rock, slowcore, shoegaze, garage rock, chamber pop, chillwave, and more. The Indie Owl brings you hard-to-find music from the artists that make it to the listeners who love it. The Indie Owl also provides independent artist news and chances to win Tomato Head and Magnolia Records gift cards. Tune in to Knoxville's true independent radio. The Indie Owl, Monday nights at 8, only on 90.3 The Rock, always bringing Knoxville new music first.
The Rock thanks the Corner Lounge, 842 Central Street, for their support, as they will be hosting one of our 40 for 40 fundraisers this Friday night, August 5th, beginning at 7 p.m. Singer-songwriters Josh Smith of Handsome and the Humbles and Zach Miles will be performing live along with Phil Fuson, and a Prairie Home Invasion and surprise guests. Volunteer Radio's 40 for 40 goal is to raise $40,000 during our 40th birthday year in 2022 for a new off-campus transmitter and tower site, which will strengthen our terrestrial signal and allow our programming and voices to be heard in new areas around East Tennessee. More info about the WTK 40 for 40 fundraiser at Corner Lounge this Friday night is at WTKradio.com.
There you go, more negative waves. Have a little faith, baby. Have a little faith.
We are Volunteer Radio. 90.3 The Rock, keeping the positive waves and cool tunes flowing since 1982.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Volunteer Radio remains on the air thanks to support from Tennessee Smokies Baseball, the AA Southern League affiliate of the Chicago Cubs, whose 2022 regular season schedule features 6-game homestands Tuesdays through Sundays at nearby Smokies Stadium in Kodak against the Chattanooga Lookouts, Mississippi Braves, Birmingham Barons, and more. WUTK's Rock Solid Sports will cover Smokies baseball all season long. SmokiesBaseball.com, and a link is at WUTKRadio.com.
The Rock thanks the Hill Bar and Grill for their support. The Hill on Forest Avenue is open 7 days a week at 11 a.m. until late night for dining indoors or on the expanded patio. The Hill has a variety of appetizers and a full menu of wings, burgers, tacos, and more. The Hill is our Thursday Munchie Madness sponsor and home of Friday's Rock Solid Sports. On Instagram at The Hill Knox. Menu at thehillknox.com.
The Rock thanks the Knoxville Ice Bears Southern Professional Hockey League team for their support. The 2022-23 home ice season from October through April includes games with SPHL rivals Fayetteville, Huntsville, Roanoke, and more at the Civic Coliseum downtown. Single game and season tickets are at KnoxvilleIceBears.com or 865-525-PUCK. Link is available at WTKRadio.com. And Rock Solid Sports features Ice Bears Wednesdays with news and updates. Volunteer Radio says, go Ice Bears.
And welcome back. This is the Monday night edition of Rock Solid Sports, presented by Fieldhouse Social. We thank them so much for their sponsorship, for allowing us to be able to do what we do. As I always say, us and all these young professionals that encompass WTK and Rock Solid Sports. Fieldhouse Social, great place. Big TVs, a lot of good food. It's just a wonderful spot to be at. Again, we thank them so much for their sponsorship. And yeah, go check them out sometime, especially when there's a lot of sports news going on, which of course we do have a lot of sports news going on, guys. We have the NFL, which, for it being, a fairly quiet time right now, is certainly picking up some steam with some news. We heard about today, Deshaun Watson has been suspended 6 games by an arbitrator. The NFL Players Association will not appeal, but the NFL is a possibility to, due to the fact that they wanted a year-long suspension for Watson. Watson's camp, of course, wanting no suspension and taking the best of what they probably could have hoped for in the situation. This has obviously been a pretty dense and heavy topic going around, guys. So I just want to get your thoughts on this whole situation. What do we look, how are you viewing, the Cleveland going into the 6-game spat where they're not going to have their quarterback, and what else you got for it?
I mean,
Cleveland. Oh, sorry. Yeah,
I
I'll
mean,
let. Okay, yeah. Okay, I'll let you go. I'll let you go, Keegan.
No, as far as the suspension goes, I mean, I think we've been seeing a lot of comparisons to the suspension over gambling, which was a full season as opposed to this being 6 games. But I think I'm okay with this suspension only because Deshaun Watson was acquitted. He was not technically charged with anything. So I mean, the NFL can only go a certain length. They can't punish him fully for a crime that he hasn't committed. They're, I believe, punishing him under their personal misconduct clause or something like that, which by the rule of their book is a less severe punishment than gambling on your own team, which they take extremely seriously. Any gambling in pro sports is taken very seriously. Now, if you want to argue with me whether those rules should be flipped, I could hear that argument. But by the rule of the book, I think comparatively it's a fair suspension. Now, if he was charged, completely different story.
Yeah, that's where Deshaun Watson's camp is getting. That's a great point, Keegan. I completely forgot about the wide receiver, gambling on his own games. Yeah, that is a very interesting comparison people are bringing up. I mean, all I got to say about this is the Cleveland Browns. I mean, really, they prove time and time again that they are just the most idiotic organization, one of the most idiotic organizations in all of professional sports. They've given Deshaun Watson, I believe it's like either the most or the second highest guaranteed money for any quarterback has ever received in NFL history, and yet he's going to miss the first 6 weeks of the season. Now they're going to justify it by saying, well. But who knows? We might be in a rebuild, and maybe we'll get him later in the season, and he'll be really great, and then we'll make a playoff push at the end, and then it will be worth it if we go deep in the playoffs and maybe make it to the Super Bowl or something. I'm like, okay, but really, I mean, you pay a quarterback that much, you expect to have him for the whole season, and also they just really got lucky with this. I mean, the NFL wanted to suspend him for the whole season, so. The Browns, honestly, like they got way in over their heads, and they really lucked out with this only being a 6-game suspension. I agree with Keegan. I mean, because Deshaun Watson was not criminally charged with anything, or they can't really suspend him for longer than this. But to be fair, a lot of people have. The NFL suspensions have been. A thing of scrutiny in the past many, many times. I mean, I can think of examples where, the NFL's got in trouble for suspending players a short amount of time for, domestic abuse, something very serious. And then, suspending players longer for weed charges, or suspending Ezekiel Elliott for 8 games in the season for something that he was accused of.
Thank you, Devin. And Tucker, I'll let you go here in just a second, but I did want to mention that of course I am Cowboys partial, right? Growing up in Texas, that was my team, and so seeing the Ezekiel Elliott situation, knowing everything we found out after the Columbus Police Department did their own investigation, found the girl to be completely unreliable. Text showing she was lying about the entire thing, everything. I'm not going to get into all that because it gets very emotional with me, but it's just the fact that there was nothing that showed Ezekiel Elliott had done anything wrong, and yet he still got a 6-game suspension. So, the NFL has been absolutely inconsistent with their rulings being handed down over to different players for different reasons.
Yeah, I got to say I'm a little surprised by Deshaun only getting a 6-game suspension. I thought he was for sure going to get more, and obviously that's what the NFL wanted to do. But, this is a really unfortunate situation for the Cleveland Browns. This guy was pretty much the best quarterback they've had since, well, I don't even know the last really good quarterback they had. I mean, Baker was considered an upgrade from what they had before, and, of course, Deshaun is an upgrade from that. Was supposed to be a huge upgrade. Now he's out for 6 games. So, of course, that delays the start with Deshaun. And you kind of wonder a little bit, is this going to be something that just hangs over Deshaun for the rest of his career and, maybe affects him a little bit? I mean, we'll see how he comes out of this situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think those 6 games and kind of the moving away from Deshaun Watson, just the Browns on the field, I don't think they're in that dire of a situation, to be honest. I mean, hear me out on these first 6 games. They had the Panthers, the Jets, the Steelers, the Browns, the Chargers, and the Patriots. So you really, theoretically, if those last 2 games are probably going to be guaranteed losses, but I think those first 4 games are winnable because you have a competent quarterback in Jacoby Brissett. He's a decent quarterback. Obviously, he's nowhere near as good as Deshaun Watson. And this team is a run-heavy team with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in the backfield. If they, come up with this good run-heavy offense and Jacoby Brissett can make his throws, which Jacoby Brissett can throw the ball. I mean, when he was backing up Phillip Rivers in those later days, they would literally just bring him in to throw some long balls. So if he can play competently, I think their defense, their running backs are decent enough for them to escape out of their 3-3. I think they could easily escape out 3-3, have Deshaun Watson back, and maybe still even make a playoff run.
Yeah, I think
that's an excellent point.
Fair to say. Devin, here, I'll throw it to you in just a second here. I think I completely agree with that, Keegan. I think for Cleveland, you can try your best to weather the storm in this situation and try to shoot for 500. I don't think that's going to be too unreasonable for them. However, of course, with losing Baker for what that's worth, I think, and not to laugh at him, but just, the whole situation, the Browns knew something was going to happen with Watson when they were going for him. And that, of course, Baker would more than if Watson was going to be on the team, of course, Baker was going to be gone somewhere. So they knew that a lot of this was coming. So I think they are somewhat prepared, I hope anyway, to weather this 6-game storm. This is the Cleveland Browns, though, that we are talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's an excellent point with that Keegan brought up, though. I mean, that schedule, after he puts it like that, and really, who knows how the Patriots are going to be also. I mean, I expect the Chargers to be elite this season. I might be as bold to say that the Chargers are going to win the AFC West because I think they're the most complete team of those 4, even though that division is all of those teams are so good. But
that's going to be a very fun division to watch.
Yeah, but I honestly think the Chargers are now the best of the 4. They could go first, and the Chiefs could go second. And then maybe the Raiders and Broncos after that, just by default, even though they're all incredible. But the Patriots, yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be. It's tough to see. Obviously, a lot of that depends on Mac Jones. A lot of that depends on the weapons he's got. But yeah, those are a lot of the Panthers not going to be that good. The Jets not going to be that good yet. So a lot of those are very, very winnable games. So, maybe that's the Browns mentality. The Browns do have a lot of talent. And, of course, the Steelers transitioning now with a rookie quarterback and Kenny Pickett. That's going to be very, very interesting. I think the Browns probably will do really, really well during that stretch. Brissett is a great backup. The thing is, they're still bringing in Watson cold after that. But it's really going to be on him to step it up big time. Maybe he'll use it as motivation. But still, really, the Browns, with the way their schedule's set up, with all the things that could have happened, yet they already paid him all this money before all this happened. So that's why I continue to say the Browns really lucked out, because that could have been extremely, extremely idiotic.
I think they absolutely 100% will take 6 games, because I think they probably expected more. I don't really know what their mentality is. I can't get inside the mind of Jim Haslam and the other guys running that team, nor do I want to, because that will drive a man to insanity, I'm sure. But that being said, there's a lot of risks that we're going to be taken with this whole situation. They were willing to just stick it out, whether it was going to be 6 games a year, no matter what. So I think they're absolutely going to take 6 games and call that a win at the end of the day. And you know what Deshaun Watson can use for motivation to get him ready for week 7. That new contract he just got, like you pointed out earlier, Devin, I believe it makes him the highest or second highest paid quarterback or athlete of the NFL. So he can use that. He can use that if he needs any motivation. With that being said, guys, we're going to transition real quick. I just want to throw out some quick tidbits of the NFL, and we'll go to break because we have a lot of MLB news that is just absolutely coming through at all points, as Tucker will get into on that side. But we have for Debo, the rest of the NFL news, Debo Samuel. We heard a lot about the whole wanting to leave San Francisco and just issues going on with the franchise there. Well, he just signed a contract extension, 3 years, $73.5 million. A lot of that guaranteed money, and he does have a possible extra $1.95 million incentives, I believe, and that has to do with him playing a running back position. He has been called a wide back, and this is a guy I think San Francisco is going to try to utilize in ways that we've just not really probably seen, except, with maybe a few here and there are exceptions, but none that are just absolutely just truly elite like Debo Samuel. So it's an odd extra incentive, but it's going to be great to see what he can do, especially with Trey Lance. This is going to allow for such explosivity of their offense as they go forward. So San Francisco made it to the NFC Championship last year. They do well on their part by keeping their star Debo Samuel. And guys, this Thursday we have the Hall of Fame game. It's the Raiders and the Jaguars. It's not two of the most exciting opponents going into this game, but as it usually goes with the Hall of Fame game, nobody's really probably going to play. So that's it's a good thing. It's also it gets our hopes up to see some of the stars that we don't end up seeing, but that's okay because the season is here. I cannot wait. Do you guys have any quick thoughts about the Raiders Jaguars or the Debo Samuel thing? And then we'll cut to a quick break.
Yeah, for the Hall of Fame game, I mean, I turn it on every year just to, see some football on my screen, but it's not that exciting. And I actually wanted to ask you guys one more thing, kind of another leading up to football season. I know for me, Hard Knocks is kind of something that I always look forward to the beginning to get me in that football season mood. I'm super excited this year because I'm a Lions fan. It's the Lions. I wanted to know if you guys find the Lions Hard Knocks interesting, because I think with Dan Campbell and stuff, it's going to be fun. Are you guys excited to watch that, or do you guys care at all?
I will try to tune in as much as I can, but I don't usually watch a lot of Hard Knocks. That's my answer.
Yeah, I can't say I watch a lot of Hard Knocks either, to be totally honest. But, I'm sure it'll be fun. Dan Campbell seems like a fun coach to play for, despite, not being in a great situation up there. So it should be a fun Hard Knocks series.
Yeah, I'm interested to see just because, like, the Lions – I mean, they got their work cut out for them, but as they usually do. But so that makes them. But that also makes them an interesting team. Like, at least it's not it's a team that you could maybe, because I mean the Bears don't look very good right now. I mean, I could maybe see the Lions being better than the Bears this season, not being the worst team in the North. I don't want to go as far as to say they'll be better than the Packers or the Vikings, though, because those two teams, especially the Vikings, I mean, the Vikings really should be the favorites in the North this season, even though the Packers have won it so much. But the Lions, I think they might be better than – yeah, no, Keegan's just – he's like, no. But the Lions, I think they'll be better than the Bears, though. Yeah, I think the Lions will be better than the Bears.
I'm not going to count on the Lions being better than anybody. That's why I'm excited for Hard Knocks. I at least get something exciting from this team because I'm just used to two wins. I'm not even going to go in on the Lions.
Fan. That is a smart fan right there, Keegan. You have learned your lesson after all the years. That's something that a lot of us Cowboy fans need to learn. I will certainly tell you. Guys, that is going to do it for our NFL segment. We have a lot of MLB news on the other side. Plus, we will have a Smokies update. Currently leading their division. Stay tuned. This is Monday night edition of Rock Solid Sports, WUTK 90.3 The Rock.
Volunteer Radio remains on the air thanks to support from Tennessee Smokies Baseball, the AA Southern League affiliate of the Chicago Cubs, whose 2022 regular season schedule features 6-game homestands Tuesdays through Sundays at nearby Smokies Stadium in Kodak against the Chattanooga Lookouts, Mississippi Braves, Birmingham Barons, and more. WUTK's Rock Solid Sports will cover Smokies Baseball all season long. SmokiesBaseball.com, and a link is at WUTKRadio.com.
The Rock thanks the Hill Bar and Grill for their support. The Hill on Forest Avenue is open 7 days a week at 11 a.m. until late night for dining indoors or on the expanded patio. The Hill has a variety of appetizers and a full menu of wings, burgers, tacos, and more. The Hill is our Thursday Munchie Madness sponsor and home of Friday's Rock Solid Sports. On Instagram at The Hill Knocks. Menu at thehillknocks.com.
Volunteer Radio receives support from Tennessee Smokies Baseball, the AA Southern League affiliate of the Chicago Cubs, whose 2022 regular season schedule features 6-game homestands Tuesdays through Sundays at Smoky Stadium in Kodak. The next series takes place against the Mississippi Braves Tuesday, August 9th through Sunday, August 14th. WUTK's Rock Solid Sports will keep you up to date with Smokies Baseball Mondays and Fridays at 7 p.m. The SmokiesBaseball.com, and the link is at WTKRadio.com.
This is Nikki J. Crawford from Oregon, and you're listening to 90.3 The Rock. Bringing Knoxville new music first. Can y'all handle it?
90.3 The Rock thanks the UT Athletic Department for their support. Season tickets for the 2022 UT Volunteers football season are on sale now. The next phase of Neyland Stadium renovations will be ready for the new season with home games against Florida, Alabama, Kentucky, and more. Info at allvols.com. A link is at WUTKRadio.com. 90.3 The Rock wishes Coach Heupel and the football Vols good luck this season on the gridiron.
90.3 The Rock proudly brings Knoxville the best in new and classic, independent, and underground music on the Indie Owl. Monday nights from 8 to 10, hosted by former award-winning alumni from the WUTK Music Department and sponsored by Magnolia Records, 1515 North Central Avenue in Knoxville, and the Tomato Head Restaurant on Market Square and in the Gallery Shopping Center. Spinning cutting-edge music from around the world that pushes musical boundaries like noise pop, math rock, slowcore, shoegaze, garage rock, chamber pop, chillwave, and more. The Indie Owl brings you hard-to-find music from the artists that make it to the listeners who love it. The Indie Owl also provides independent artist news and chances to win Tomato Head and Magnolia Records gift cards. Tune in to Knoxville's true independent radio. The Indie Owl, Monday nights at 8, only on 90.3 The Rock, always bringing Knoxville new music first.
And welcome back into Monday night edition of Rock Solid Sports right here on WTK 90.3 The Rock. We appreciate everyone out there for joining us. We have had quite a loaded show so far. It's been fantastic. I have such a wonderful crew with me tonight, and glad that we have all of our equipment working so that we can get our all of our young professionals here on the radio for you. Again, thank you so much for your listening, for your viewership, for anything. Everyone out there on StreamYard, we thank you so much. And we are back, and we are getting into some MLB news. We will actually get into the MLB news here in just a second, I should say. Well, first, let me say the Smokies, Tennessee Smokies, coming off a big 8-5 win over Birmingham yesterday, are currently leading the North Division by one game over both Birmingham and Rocket City. They are currently 15-12 as we start to progress more through the second half of the season there, and they are 6-4 in the last 10. So, winning record, you certainly take that in baseball, but it seems to me the Smokies are getting a little bit better and better as we go along. So we will continue to keep our eye on that. And I'm sure you will hear our Joseph Bonanno talk much about them moving forward as well, as he is working with the Smokies this summer. So, great for the Smokies. And we now shift forward to the MLB news going on. I had standings in the queue, guys. I don't even know if I really care much about it, to be honest, because there's so much else going on. But I will just say, rattle off real quick. As far as your MLB standings, Yankees and Astros both still absolutely dominating their divisions. Minnesota right now currently leading the AL Central. Show your hand if you had the Twins leading the AL Central after the All-Star break. But they only lead by one game over Cleveland, 2 over the Chicago White Sox. So that is a very close division and one to keep an eye on there in the AL. In the NL, the Dodgers are the equivalent of the Yankees and Astros, absolutely dominating their division. However, they are leading the San Diego Padres, who we will touch on in just a second, by about double-digit games. It's quite a lead, but can there be a run made? The Mets and the Brewers are also leading their divisions by 3 games over Atlanta and St. Louis, respectively. Excuse me. Oh, forgot how to talk. All right, guys. So we have so much going on. MLB trades. Speaking of those Padres, Josh Hader traded from Milwaukee to San Diego. Padres get him in a deal. And of course, Milwaukee, I think trying to take advantage right now of their lineup, if you will. Hader is a guy that has a lot of potential, of course. He does have a bad ERA as it stands right now. However, they maintain it would be better if not for two recent terrible games before the All-Star break. But that being said, he is going to San Diego. Padres also extend Joe Musgrove, the hometown kid. And, man, we could possibly be looking at Juan Soto joining them as well. We're going to get into that real quick. So we have the Padres beefing up their lineup. We have Trey Mancini from Baltimore going from the Orioles down to H-Town. He will be joining the Astros, who desperately need some help at first base and outfield from time to time. So I'm happy to see that myself. And I don't know if you guys saw it as well. I don't want to deviate too much, but Trey Mancini's last at bat as an Oriole, the inside the park home run. If you haven't seen it, it's a tremendous view, and it's very heartfelt moment for him in front of the Baltimore fans there. So, and the last news I have is the Yankees are to acquire starting pitcher Frankie Montas and relief pitcher Lou Trevino from the A's. Not the big trade deadline news Yankee fans probably were expecting, but they are making moves and trying to bolster up their bullpen. Tucker, I'm going to throw it to you real quick because you've been on top of everything that MLB's Jeff Passan has been dropping. So have a way at it, my friend.
Yeah, so I mean, looking at a lot of these moves, it feels like these are just guys that are being freed from teams that are just not having great seasons right now. Sorry, Dylan, if you're listening, but Trey Mancini on the Orioles. I mean, that he's a great player, and the Orioles are not a franchise that's really going to help him win any in like a postseason situation or something. So, him going to the Astros, I think, is definitely beneficial.
Thank you, Dylan. Appreciate it.
And one other thing, Chris, the Astros, they just got Christian Vasquez from the Red Sox, who, in my opinion, is one of the more underrated Red Sox players in the last 5 years because, of course, we've seen guys like Mookie Betts and some of their pitchers like David Price and then just kind of steal the show. But he's a guy that's been consistent, especially when they were going through that pretty harsh rebuild during COVID.
Yeah, so, I think for Vasquez too, he represents a lot of catchers, does he not? Like ones that are just they're so appreciated by the team, but they're very overlooked in terms of the general population and baseball fans. That's a very good point. And for the Astros, they just absolutely we need batting help at the catcher. We're struggling right now. I love Machado. I love that guy, Machete as we call him. That guy, he's wonderful on the defensive end. Offensive end, not so much. So happy to see Vasquez. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, and the other big acquisition that I noticed just a couple days ago, Luis Castillo was acquired for the Reds by the Mariners, which, I mean, if you've been paying attention at all, the Mariners have a sneaky good pitching rotation, and adding Castillo into that mix is just huge for them. So that should be a very interesting thing to watch there. And then on the same topic of, just really standout players being freed from just poor teams at the moment. Frankie Montas going to the Yankees, he's probably one of the better pitchers in the league that not a lot of people know about. So it'll be interesting to see him get added to that Yankees rotation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the Yankees, we know the firepower they have on the offensive side. I think that's one thing that they've definitely needed to bolster up is that not just the bullpen, but starting pitching in general. And of course, we know about Cole, though. Cole's had some struggles here and there, but he is still Garrett Cole. He's still probably the best pitcher that the Yankees have. But nevertheless, good for them because they kind of added what they needed. I don't feel like they did that last year when we got to the trade deadline, and that's what kind of costed them in the playoffs as we moved forward, right? So I think that's very good for them. For Boston, I don't know what it signals for them. They didn't really get anything out of the deal that I know of or am aware of. Of course, Tucker, you're the one that broke it to me. But, I'm happy for our guys. I don't know exactly what else is going on to do with that trade. But all I know is, happy guy over here for sure. And another guy that's happy out there that I have to mention on behalf of our Joseph Banana, who absolutely wanted to make sure that Braves Nation out there, everyone listening, that Young Thick, a nickname I've never heard before, but will say again, Young Thick Austin Riley gets a 10-year, $212 million deal from the defending champs to, I don't know, just really help them going the rest of the way. That is quite the contract, to be honest, and very obviously well warranted, well deserved for Austin Riley. That obviously make a lot of Braves fans very happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, without having a Freddie Freeman on the team anymore, that guy that really is just the fan favorite, he may become that new guy with that massive contract extension. And then the one other thing I wanted to ask all of you guys, we all know about the Juan Soto controversy in Washington, and it really feels like we've zeroed in on what looks like the Cardinals, the Padres, and the Dodgers for possible destinations. Which of these destinations do you guys see him going to? I'll go first on this one. I think he ends up being a Padre.
Yeah, I mean, well, all I got to say about that is I really hope he doesn't go to the Dodgers. That's for sure. Just because and the thing is, and this has been one of my criticisms of the MLB for some time, but every other league seems to have a very good salary cap. The NFL, the NBA, and the NHL all have really strong salary caps where if they are respected, then it creates a lot of competitive balance where a team can go from being like the Cincinnati Bengals, of course, can go from being really, really, really terrible and then just in a couple of years can be in the Super Bowl. You just never know. Maybe the Detroit Lions could do something like that too. You just never know because of this.
Don't start poking at Keegan.
Yeah.
He
all right.
He doesn't deserve it.
Okay, maybe I'll say the Cleveland Browns then. Some other team like that. You just never know. But in the MLB, the salary cap situation where the Yankees and the Dodgers, and I'm going to say it, Chris, the Astros too, can theoretically buy up just about any player that they really want. And yes, sometimes that doesn't always work out. Baseball is a tricky thing to predict. You still lose. But I believe there's such an unfair advantage to the huge market teams. I just don't see that in other sports. So for me, it's just a shame that the Dodgers are able to buy so many and the Yankees too are able to buy so many of the best players. So that's one reason why I hope Soto either goes to the Padres or even the Cardinals. I would have no problem with that either. That would make things really interesting with their race there between them and the Brewers.
Yeah, absolutely. So, personally, I don't know if he's going to Milwaukee, if he's going to go, not Milwaukee, I'm sorry, St. Louis, or if he's going to go to San Diego. I think San Diego is very likely. They seem like they are all in right now because they know they're well behind the Dodgers, even with a great record. But this isn't like the Giants and Dodgers last year, that fantastic race that it was. The Padres have a lot of making up to do as of right now. So with that being said, guys, we're going to keep an eye on the Juan Soto trades and everything. But that is it for tonight. We appreciate everyone out there that has joined us. Thank you, everyone on StreamYard, everyone out there listening. I know Rock Solid is over. We will be back on Friday night with Chloe hosting. But keep it locked in. We've got a lot of great stuff coming up. This is 90.3 The Rock.
Proud to be local music's best friend and Rockeneers for 40 years. You're tuned in to WUTK 90.3 FM, Knoxville, Tennessee.
Indie rock lives on college radio, always has, always will.